Is it a stable market or is it a declining market? And how do you list a property during any one of these cycles? What's it worth? So the seller always wants to tell you that the market is rising, right? What does the buyer want to tell you? The market is falling, and at best, it's stable. I'm going to challenge you so that when you go out and make a listing presentation, you can at least use this graph, because the market never does any of these things. The market never goes straight up, the market never stays still, and the market never drops like that. The market looks like this through any one of these cycles, depending on which market you think you're in. So the market is constantly doing this. What is value range marketing doing? It's giving you the opportunity to pick up the buyer or the seller on a particular day that the market is up or down. Big difference. What does this mean? So why, when you go in to deal with a comp, right, and you do it all the time, whether you call it that or not, is not. They say, well, my house, the last house sold for $7 million, mine's worth $8. Why is it that the last house sold for $7 million and his house is worth $8? And why is it that you can also find a comp that sold for $6.5? Why does that happen? It's because of this. The market changes every day. And the motivation of the buyer and the seller changes every day. So the person who buys here just sold the brewery for $1 billion. Right? The person who sells their house here has to make a cash payment and their loan's being called. So every day the market is changing based on the motivation of the buyer or the seller. So value range then allows you to encompass what's happening with the buyer and the seller at the same time. So the seller understands that they've had great days and they've had bad days. I want to not lower my price because I can never, ever get it back once I lower it. So the dream value is worth having be the high number, and value range is worth it so that you don't have to take the low number on a bad day. That's what it's about. So the market never stays stagnant. And everybody will say, look, how come that guy was able to steal the house and you can't get it? They blame their real estate agent. Well, the real estate agent write this down, please. The seller never wants to tell you what they'll sell for. This probably keep the video in-house, but the seller doesn't like you. If you believe that the seller likes you, get some more good dope.
Oh.
You know, go out somewhere and kid yourself, because the seller only wants their dream value, and the seller never wants to hear from you about anything else. And the buyer only wants to buy things. So I think this is just a general real estate fact. If you're working with somebody who wants to buy something and steal it, tell them to load the gun. Right? Don't go in to try to steal something with a weak pitch. I've got a $6 million deal falling apart today. In San Diego, we have both sides of the deal because the guy accepted a weak pitch. They should have said, if I'm going to accept this price, do you have the cash? Do you have the cash right now? And can you buy this house? And will you close escrow in 5 days? And incidentally, if you want to read the CC&Rs, read them right now before you write this offer. So you got to be tough with tough people, and I think we're not tough enough. And when somebody wants to steal something, tell them to load the gun. I had a client, actually, who said he wanted to buy a $27 million house for $12 million. That's not a real exciting thing to get to present, right? So I said to him, how badly do you want to buy the house? He said, I really want it. I said, well, then give me 3 criteria. I said, first of all, you're going to have to write a really big deposit. If you want to offer $12 million, you got to write a really big deposit. He said, how much would the deposit be? I said, $12 million. Load the gun, right? If you're going to read the CC&Rs, read them right now, and don't find a single thing wrong. And by the way, I've already got the property inspected. Here's the inspection, read everything, because this $12 million offer is going to fly if you're going to come back later and say, I need $2 million worth of repairs. Right? Third thing, he said to me, what's the third thing I got to do? And so we have to know that if this $12 million check isn't good and I get it accepted, then I'm going to come back here and kill you. We got to be serious with people, and we've got to be sometimes mean, sometimes soft, but always we have to make a decision as to whether or not we have a real buyer. So value range won't work for a buyer that doesn't buy. Just quick quote, and I'll write it down for you, and we'll send you some notes. Buyers that buy, buy, and buyers that don't buy, don't buy. How many of you have had buyers that don't buy? Thousands of them. We spend thousands of hours with buyers who won't take relevant steps along the way, don't we? I mean, you'd make so much more money if every buyer would buy. How about sellers that sell? Sellers that sell, and sellers that don't sell. So you have listings that are not going to sell because instead of having a dream value and a wish value, you've got a fixed dream value that nobody will ever pay. So this is a simplified way of saying get out of the price argument. Do not allow people to manipulate you. You don't have to manipulate them. Just tell them the truth and get them to understand that at some point, and we've proved it time and time again. I've been doing this since 1994.
Yes.
1994 is when the Australian market crashed.
Yeah, right.
Gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's when you quit having sellers and buyers agents. That's when everything crashed in Australia. Doing that this long, and I promise you, I have seen the person start at 200,000 above the wish value and pay the dream value. Why? They wanted it. It was their dream. They loved the blue bidets, right? They wanted the gold fixtures. They came from Bahrain or wherever it was. There was something that motivated them. There was no other lot that they could buy. What happens is you get closer to the dream value when instead of the bullshit things that your clients are telling you, there actually is something special about the house. How about if it is the greatest view in the history of Carencia? Carencia has some great views, right? Some of the best in the world. So if there's one property that Ego Man has to have, right? You could start by getting him to come in with the wish and end up with him paying the dream. Happens all the time. If the market is doing this and you've got a listing, right? And all of a sudden your people get another opportunity. That's why this works so well. During the course of your listing, and you have to have a long listing, no matter whether it's a fixed listing or a just to be able to afford to market it. But look, what happens if while your seller is waiting for the dream value, his stock drops, right? And this guy sells his company. This gave us the ability to end up with a closed transaction. So that's the game. Fun?
Yeah.
Is it something new to think about?
Yeah.
So Warren Buffett listed a piece of property with me. Warren's a nice man. He's a little intimidating, but he listed a piece of property with me. At the time, he was the second wealthiest man in the world. And we went in to list his house in Emerald Bay in Orange County. And I explained this whole process, the dream value and the wish value, to his daughter, right? She listened and she says, that's just bullshit. That's just bullshit. That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. I said, well, it's designed so that you will get probably $2 million more for the house than you would get if we fixed priced it. A very valuable house. And this is what she said to me. She said, that's just what my dad needs. $2 million more for his house. You idiot. Right? Are you crazy? put it at what it'll sell for and sell it today. I don't have to deal with it anymore. When Warren Buffett found out, right, that she'd left $2 million on the table because we didn't value range, he wanted my ass, right? So don't leave your client's money on the table. Give them every opportunity to get the dream and go through the process so that they know you tried as hard as they could to get the price that they wanted. Now you've been in listing presentations, both of you have been in listing presentations with me. You go through all of this crap and they decide they want to fixed price it at the dream value. Have any of you ever been there? Mm-hmm. So I went through all of this, and even if you don't value range it, what ends up happening is it at least gets a discussion about how ridiculous this is. So they have a listing for the third year.
Howard's?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's
2.5. 2.5.
And
To be
they're
fair,
we are the
we re-sign every.
Yeah.
We're like
Yeah.
the sixth agent.
Yeah, but-
We re-sign every 3 months.
six
But we
agents.
talked about the dream value, right? And we told them, you know, your dream value is higher than everybody else's dream value. There's no chance this house is going to sell for this. And he said, well, I want to try it anyway. Well, you know, listing agreements have to have an expiration in them. So we had a 1-year expiration.
No.
And
And
they're-
6 months.
That's 6 months.
And then 3 months.
And they're
every.
about to list the property, and I said, hey, Howard, I want you to look at this little document that's going to be off the record, but I want you to sign it. And he said, why do you want that? And I said, well, I want you to sign it because we're listing this at your dream value that no one else in the world will ever believe this house is worth. Tell the truth. Huh? So he says, well, what does this say? I said, listing for life. Right? Sign here. Right? He signed it.
No.
Right? And that's why we're finally to the point where the house could actually sell. But if you don't do this, if you don't talk about, if value range doesn't do you anything else but the opportunity to explain how buyers buy and sellers sell, and then you fix price it, it's okay. At least you did something to have them understand that you need to get the relisting after you do all the work. So it's pretty interesting, the psychology of this game, and it's worked extremely well for me.
And
Yes.
just a question, so support and resistance levels determined, you know, by the comp, but they're obviously, you're doing it just off comps, kind of your,
Well,
but the market ever changing with support and resistance
it's
is
easy.
really
It's easy to say.
much more of a variable.
Yeah, it's easy to say, look, this is the comp, and look, John, your house is really nicer than the comp. I get it. I understand that your house is nicer, so let's really understand how much nicer it is than the comp. Then set what it would really be worth at a comp value, and then get the higher number here and the lower number here. So you don't want to get in the price argument over the comp, because you might be sitting in a house that's so much nicer than the comp. You know, look at the square footage argument is the most stupid argument in the history of real estate. Here.
What did he say?
So
Nathan,
my house is 10,000 square feet. That house that sold was 7,000 square feet, right? 7,000 square feet. Well, that house that sold was the most beautiful 7,000 square feet on the face of the earth, and every inch of your house sucks. Every inch. It's the worst 10,000 square feet ever derived in the history of construction. It's ugly. I mean, that's the truth. So you can never talk about square footage. Yeah, square footage is just going to kill you. Oh yeah, well it must be worth $500 a foot, therefore it must be worth what? Come on, you Swift.
5 million.
5 million.
That's where they get their comps though.
Right? So comps just
I think.
don't work, but they're a basis from which people start.
Yeah.
Right? And the farther down the food chain you go, the more the comp works, by the way. If you get to and you don't really have them, but you do, you have insignificant tracts here in Cabo San Lucas. You've got places where every house is an A, B, or a C plan, right? And you can pretty much tell what the A, the B, or the C plan is going to sell for, and you can raise or lower the comp based on a few $100s. You know, it's pretty simple. So this is not as easy to use when you're talking about moderate price property. Because moderate price property is moderate price property. I'm really talking about the exclusive, unbelievable, beautiful properties that Sotheby's represents worldwide. Do you know the most expensive house to sell in the history of the world per square foot?
What?
Nathan, do you know
You know who sold it? The Hong Kong Sotheby's office.
$1,800.
$18,000 a square foot. 7,000 square feet,
Wow.
they sold it for $161 million. We got places to go and people to see. We got property that's on the rise. You know, the world is a tough place. There's so much opportunity when you look at the beauty that you can sell somebody here. It's magnificent. It's just absolutely magnificent. This is the most golden place on the face of the earth. I can't think of any place. Have you ever seen a place where more Gulfstreams line up on a Friday afternoon than do at the Cabo Airport?
you
Oh,
sent
it's
me
like-
you sent the
That
pictures
picture.
of it,
It's
no?
like, my God, who's here? Everybody? You know, it's that simple. And so I just think what we've talked about today, I want you to know it's not the end all be all, but for some people, it's a great opportunity. And if you don't have the energy to try to create value range marketing in your market, which is a question, and you're going to have to try to think about it. If you don't want to try to fight that battle, at least use the theory, right? And maybe the theory will help you get a little bit off of the dream value, as opposed to being way out of sight. And maybe it'll give you the chance to relist it when it's going to sell, rather than just have it when it was at that price that nobody was ever going to even look at it. Is that fun?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah.
Any question, Bill? Oh, you got the master here.
He's the master.
So thank you very much, and we'll give him a round of applause.
There you go. There you go.
All the way from Australia, Mexico.
So,
There you
So I
go.
was in
Thank you.
when I was real young, I was giving a speech in the Astrodome in Houston. And I had the 5 greatest real estate speakers in history at the time. And one of them got sick, so I replaced a very famous person. So I had to give a 2-hour lecture. It was called the Super Bowl Sales Rally, 18,000 people in the room. And as I was finishing my presentation, I was truly a nobody. I mean, nobody. This one guy is running down to try to say hello to me. And he's running at me, he's running, great big guy. And I'm thinking, oh, this is before all of the terrorist attacks. And I'm thinking, wow, what does this guy want me? He's yelling, Steve, Steve, do you remember me? Do you remember me? And I said, no, who are you? He said, I'm Bob. You and I went to kindergarten together.
Oh my God.
Right? And I looked at him and said, which year? Thanks, everybody.